James on deck. My brother. Okay. Let's jump in with both of these, y'all. Do some stuff I should have did. Nice. Okay. Welcome to the BroDiallo broadcast. Happy Black August. I'm so happy. I got a couple of announcements. Maybe I should save it to the end. But one thing I can't wait to say. I want to shout out to all my longtime supporters and my new supporters. We done reached 30,000 subscribers. We've reached 5,000 subscribers, y'all, which is huge for me. I don't know if you follow the BroDiallo broadcast, but you'll know I don't do all that mumbly peg. I don't have any sponsors. I don't do none of the algorithmic stuff since the day I started this channel and then kind of revived the channel. And I didn't really start off as a YouTube channel. I started off as at a radio station doing local broadcasting at a radio station. And then I would just I started, living on Facebook and then YouTube. So I haven't really been going hard in the paint for YouTube for as long as I've been around, because the main thing was the radio station. And the radio station had its own website, had its own signal, and had its own team and stuff. So when I left Q4 Radio unceremoniously and just started doing YouTube and kind of venturing out with DialloKenyatta.com and all that, I was relatively obscure, which I didn't have a problem with obscurity, because I think obscurity allowed me to say what I wanted to say. And when I kind of popped up on the radar of major media figures or public known figures, it's not really productive back and forth, but we don't run from no smoke. But anyway, see, James was there from the giddy up, because they wouldn't even let me go live from the radio station because I had fewer than 1,000 subscribers, and I had to, knuckle up and beg, borrow, and steal 1,000. But anyway, I'm very proud that we up to 5,000 with the BroDiallo broadcast and the BroDiallo channel, because it's all authentic. It's all of my followers are authentic. I didn't play no games. I don't run no scams or hustles or any briberies, or I don't try to seduce you. I just, from my point of view, a pure, radical, revolutionary, Pan-African perspective. And I know even some of my most loyal and consistent supporters, they don't like some things I got to say. And I'll say them, and I say some things, I'll admit, I'll say some things I didn't have to say, and I'll say those things again if I have to. So, I know everybody here is the realest people. Y'all the realest one. Like my man Shayun says, when people come to his show, you the best people. How I know you the best people? Because you here. So shout out to all my early, late, and soon to come through subscriber. We have 5K, y'all. Big time. Famous. I might just, don't approach me in the street no more, because I'm freaking famous now. I'm famous. Just don't approach me way from a distance, because I'm too big now. I got 5,000 followers on YouTube. I don't even know. This is a whole different arena for me. I might have to level up. I might have to get me a Kardashian. Leave Dr. Mingo. Give me a Kardashian. What a brother's supposed to do when he levels up. I'm new to this. Anyway, like, share, subscribe. Let's see how far we can get this. I can't remember if it was Wednesday or Monday's show. I said some things that got kind of a response. And dudes coming at me and making accusations against me about who I don't like, telling me I hate some people that I've never said that I hate. I don't recall ever saying that I hate these people. Oh, I guess it's not here. And he was like, well, you hate these people, and you talking about these people, and they're scientific, they're fact-based, woo, woo, woo. Dang, here it is. No. Anyway, this brother tells me that I hate people like Dr. Fubar and Irritated Genie, Dr. Imalamu Baruti, telling me I hate these people because of of my, criticisms of their positions on the LGBTQAI plus community. And I'm like, when did I ever say I hate these people? And I'm like, I said they're criticisms which I adhere to. And if you know anything about me and any other principled person, you engage in more intensive and direct internal criticism than you ever do external criticism. So if someone is espousing points of views or ideologies that I once adhered to or believed in, I admit I go probably more intensely against those who um who are saying things that I formerly believed, who take stances that I formerly took, who articulate positions that I used to articulate but have changed, reversed, denounced, thought better of. That tends to get me because here it is. Damn. Where are you at? I see it on the thing. Did he delete these comments? Wow. Dude deleted the comments. We had all these back and forth. So anyway, this brother, I ain't gonna say your name. I'll say it. It's not a real name. The Atomic C came and said that I hate these people because of their positions on the LGBTQAI community. And he deleted his comments. Boy, Atomic C, where you at? And so he said, I hate these people. And I said, no, I don't hate them. I disagree with them. And I mock them because they're not. Here it is. He didn't say hate. He said despise. That might be worse. He said, so you despise the work of Irritated Genie, Straight Black Male, Mwalamu, Inayabarudi, and these other figures. But he's deleted. Wow. So anyway, I decided this is what I'm gonna do. And I said that, they make baseless claims, they engage in hysterics, and they attack vulnerable and targeted populations within our community unjustly. Like there's certain minorities in our community that I think should be criticized and attacked, condemned, like millionaires and billionaires. They are, most black people, the black millionaires and billionaires are a minute minority group within our community. There are certain groups that I think it is justified to target. And I only think it's justified to target groups in our community. I don't come with that old righteous. I ain't saying you can't diss nobody, you can't make fun of nobody, and all that. But there are certain groups in our community that, number one, hold no real power or status, have a history of being victims of compounding oppression. And again, what do we say? Compounding oppression is when you got the base level oppression, racial oppression, and then you add in poverty, you add in sexism, you add in disabilities, you add in being nonconformist or inconsistent with the sexual or gender norms of the society. You got migrants, non-English speakers, or people who don't speak English as a first language. There's all these other groups of or titles or classifications or labels or statuses that someone can have that compounds racism. And that's why we can never say in any movement or struggle, oh, it's just we got to fight this racism and everybody else take a step back. Somebody said colorism, ageism, it's all this shit goes. But there are other statuses like black cops, black millionaires and billionaires, black celebrities, black elected officials. There are other groups in our community that are relatively small in number, but have a higher level of damage, have a higher level of resources and power. I think you go at their necks, and you can even be reckless and irresponsible in calling them out. But if you got a critique of a vulnerable or formerly target or currently target population, if you do have criticisms, critiques, you have to be more delicate. And that's just in the name of justice, just being a decent person, in the name of not being a piece of shit or an asshole. I don't know why. These are lessons I learned from Miss Franklin and Miss Fox when I was in the Kansas City, Missouri public school system. Just how to be halfway decent as a human being. And also, black scholars, and I'm not even saying all these other groups who you can attack are inherently bad or good. Black scholars, black PhDs, and things of that. Nate, so I think everyone should come under scrutiny. Every group, every population should come under scrutiny. And so when I'm talking about these other people, one thing that no black person has a right to do is compound the oppression of another black person. Even black gangs, and so all that to say, what I'm going to do, I went and dug out this copy that I read. I read this book faithfully. This book came out like a year after my son was born. This book came out less than a year after my son was born. And I was like, my first son. And I ran and bought this book like, oh shit, I don't want them turning my son into their daughters. And so I went and read this, and I studied this book. And he's quoting Amos Wilson in here and talking about Urugu, Marimba Ani, all the other scholars. So I read this book when I was totally aligned with the premise. I was completely accepting of the premise of the book. So what this book did, it really didn't present any evidence or even any sound grounded analysis. It just confirmed my biases and positions. And it spoke to and it ginned up a lot of fear and anxiety that I had. So I'm going to review this book and talk about when I said their claims are not scientific, they're not peer reviewed. And of course, even this book, there's a part where he talks about the white man's science and white this, and anything that contradicts what I'm saying is just white European technology. You take that. So that's going to be my next book review. I'm going to start working on that right away. I know the book reviews have fallen off greatly. I even had some people come on board to help me with editing and doing the book reviews and all that. So the BroDiallo, but hitting this 5,000, I'm inspired and invigorated. So the book reviews is coming back with a vengeance. Me and Skip are going to be working together on a much more broader level with projects and stuff, mutual support. We're going to be communistic and socialistic in our cooperation and coordination. So I'm really looking forward to that. This weekend, I'll be in Jackson, Mississippi, and with Skip celebrating the release of his latest album, first album out in a decade, and the Rational Radicals and EYL. We're going to be all together. So it's a good weekend coming up. But I'm going to be on top of other stuff because, I'm only human, and positive reinforcement, as negative as I am, I realize the value in positive reinforcement. So the support I get from the community, so a little viewership going up, and I know it's people out there with 7-figure viewerships and hundreds of thousands of views for every video. But I'm a humble man. It don't take much to impress me. And like the sisters like to tell us brothers, it ain't how big you are, it's how you use it. So it ain't how big my channel is. It's how I'm using my channel to advocate, promote, and educate about Pan-African revolutionary struggle. But speaking on that, punching down, this is bothering me because every day I go out into the world and listen, I can see shit online and just be like, that's some internet shit. That's internet shit. So I ain't got a trip. That's online shit. And maybe my algorithm's messing with me, or maybe because I've been going back and forth with someone online about an issue, so that means they're going to keep throwing this shit up in my recommendations and on my feed. But when I see shit on the internet and it spill out into day-to-day life, I know y'all can tell just by looking. I started going back to the gym, right? And so I'm in the gym, and I'm in there working out with my sons and stuff, going through the motions with them, and I'm talking to the brothers at the gym, and especially the old heads and the politically engaged people, and they on this Kamala shit. I go around talking to my friends and my acquaintances and my brothers, and everybody talking the election. Everybody, like to talk politics with me because they know I'm gonna say something greasy. And this Kamala shit is bothering me. And not for the reasons y'all think. Even my mans in them. Even my mans in them over there at Black Liberation Media and on their socials and websites, community movement builders. This talk of Kamala, I said it before, there are two camps of Kamala opponents and two camps of Kamala detractors. There is the left and the right, or I've come to call them the sexists and the leftists. Now, I know a lot of leftists who oppose Kamala for all the right reasons, who condemn, critique, refuse to vote for her or support her for all the right reasons. But I don't see them doing enough to distinguish themselves from the people who hate Kamala for all the wrong reasons. So if you're on there like, yeah, Kamala and these people out here saying she ain't black, saying she slept her way to the top. Now, I went over this all before. I talked about all this shit 2 weeks ago or a week ago. It was all good just a week ago. But y'all didn't hear me though, and I'm still seeing. I thought I solved the problem. Why am I still seeing on Twitters and the socials and hearing it at the goddamn gym? People still attacking Kamala from the right. Not only are people attacking Kamala from the right-wing perspective, from the right-wing ideological and the right-wing political perspective, they're attacking her from that, and then they're advocating and aligning themselves from that perspective. So here's the thing. There are a lot of people, when you hear somebody say, I ain't voting for Kamala, I ain't dealing with Kamala. A lot of those people don't like Kamala and the Democrats because from their point of view, even though y'all gonna hear me say these things, you be like, but that ain't what the Democrats really are. But this is their public perception. This is their branding. Because they're liberal, number one. And I know people out there don't like liberals. And the reason, and again, people, the left, the leftists, the revolutionaries don't like liberals, and the right don't like liberals. And it is a fallacy saying your enemy's enemies is your man, is your homie. You can't always lock arms with your enemy's enemies. Because we've seen many a time that our enemy's enemy allies with our enemy to come at us. So just like you want to link up with your enemy's enemy, but if your enemy's enemy is also your enemies, then you got three enemies, and there can be three combos. They both can gang up against you, or they can, even if they don't unify, they can both decide they prioritize attacking you over prioritizing each other. And I think black people are really confused about liberalism. And we shouldn't be confused about liberalism. Liberalism is not bad. Y'all don't hear me though. I have this dude, this one, I'm a political scientist and policy. Wong, he's a political scientist, and liberalism is bad. But saying liberalism is bad is kind of like black people thinking guns are bad. Or even the institution of family is bad, because the only liberalism we've been exposed to is Western European liberalism. The only family structure we've been opposed to is the Judeo-Christian hierarchical nuclear family. The only economics is bad because the only economic system any of us have lived under Western, but there are different forms and different manifestations, different applications of economics, even self-defense, armaments. But it's just, yes, thank you. The problem with liberalism is that it is inadequate. And liberalism under capitalism, and that's the thing we don't understand about capitalism. We'll get into this a little more. But capitalism, what makes it so dangerous and so difficult to upend is its capacity to inundate anything, even things that oppose it. Capitalism can make a profit out of selling Che Guevara t-shirts. Even Marx said it. The capitalist will make a profit selling you the shovel with which you will dig his grave. So it's very good at integration to the point where it's had my race, the people who have been on a relentless attack by white races seeking integration with the very system and and populations and cultures that have been doing us dirty nonstop. But I digress. So liberalism means individual autonomy. And individual autonomy was such a revolutionary concept in revolutionary Europe. Europe went from when it was transferring to an absolute monarchy and theocratic, you had the monarchs and the church were the power. And so then they started having representative governments and citizens councils or peasant revolts. And so they were like, liberty and justice for all. That was a revolutionary concept. Shit that other people, native people or the people of the New World, the people of the Orient, the people of the Dark Continent, right? White people, when they said for liberty and justice for all, they really take that funky ass Constitution. Go read the Constitution. Their minds are blown. Wow. Well, this is a revolutionary idea. All men are created equal and endowed by their creator to pursue. That shit was alien. Because their culture said man is born wicked and corrupt and lives to suffer, and you're suffering, and you are born to a low caste and born in sin, and they had concepts that you belong to the Lord of the manor. You were a serf, you were a pleb, you were a peasant. So to say such a man could have rights and have his own voice, that was alien. That's why when Europeans went all over the world, you know that song, Take Me to the King? That's some goofy shit. That's some Western shit. Like when aliens land on this planet and say, take me to your leader. And he's so blind and thinking there's one leader over all human beings because he doesn't see the plethora through his own lack because of his own development and his own culture is so literally alien to human beings. Who you going to take him to? Kamala? Bush? Biden? Putin? Maduro? I'd take him to Maduro. Aliens came to the south side of Chicago, take me to your leader. I'm like, oh yeah. Y'all still got gas money? Let's fly down to Venezuela. This is our leader. Do what he tells you. Anyway. So the concept of liberty is a revolutionary idea in Western culture. It is something that Africans had figured out millennia ago during antiquity. European historians and archaeologists would go to Africa and dig up our dead ancestors and see a mason or a scribe buried with regalia in a position of respect. And they would look at the carvings and the hieroglyphics and the monuments and the shrines in Africa and see shrines to people who would be defined as commoners, people unworthy of note in their own culture. So then they started even saying, well, these are kings and queens, and they started superimposing their comprehension, their understanding, their definitions onto a culture that was well beyond theirs. Now, there were some, from Albert Churchward to even Christopher Columbus, who acknowledged, hey, this shit is way so different. There's no European words. There's no European philosophies that can describe what we're encountering in the New World, in the dark continent, in the dark reaches of the exotic Orient. We don't even have words to describe this shit. So you have the newest population, the youngest civilization, and we're being generous to call it that. The youngest, most violent, and I predict short-lived civilization in human history that is giving the lens and the language to civilizations that were old, that are literally millennia old. The United States is not 300 years old. We have continual lines of governance, nationhood, identities, and cultures in Africa that span over 10,000 years. The United States is on the brink of collapse, and it's only not even. I was a little baby, the bicentennial, 1976. I was an infant. I was a suckling child when the United States hit 200 years old. A suckling, a picnic. So this United States is rapid and already has all the evidence of a collapsing empire, a culture in decay. So these are the motherfuckers that have defined reality for us. And we don't even resist it. We don't even forget resisting. Before you can resist, you have to resent. You have to resent before you can resist. You got to hate on some shit. That's why all this hateration shit, you play a hater. I think that's fucking COINTELPRO. Telling black folks not to hate. Like hating on something is shameful. Somebody like, I can't hold hate in my heart. If you can't hold hate in your heart, then get a new heart. Get a transplant. Get a hateful heart. Hate is good, but I digress. All I'm saying is the concept of liberalism as we live under means personal autonomy, personal freedom, personal mobility, and a liberal state allows for personal development. So the liberals say that we will enact policies that allow for freedom of expression, freedom of mobility, free to identify as who you are and to live out your existence. And then we will create certain protections. We will build a wall, consumer protections. And so these things are not bad. Now we think they're bad because then they said, well, we're going to give all this liberal positions to individuals, but now we're going to define multinational corporations as people, as persons in the eyes of the laws. So Amazon has the same rights you have to make contributions to politicians, to articulate its views and values, to be protected from undue prosecution, property rights for this fictional entity. And so because Europeans have taken liberalism and abused it and warped it and applied it in places it never belonged. They took liberalism and limited liability and capitalism, and we're like, yeah, we don't like liberals. And I think you shouldn't like liberals. Because now liberals went from defending the liberties of individuals to defending the liberties of multinational corporations because they are persons. And then they took liberalism, freedom of movement, and applied it to economics, which is neoliberalism. And saying, well, if a person can move from state to state, can move from country to country, why can't money move? Why can't property and intellectual property be contained? So they started anthropomorphizing these unreal entities. But that's not the fault of liberals or liberalism. And so we have African countries that aren't building up infrastructure, that aren't defending the economic or territorial integrity, that are facilitating the rape of Africa's resources. But they're outlawing homosexuality. They're imposing everything from fines, prison time, to the death penalty for homosexuality. And then the EU will sanction that country because of its liberal values. And you got black people sitting there like, yeah, see, that's liberalism. Let me tell you something. Revolution is an intellectual endeavor, and you can't be intellectually lazy. So many black people fall into conservatism as a defense against liberalism. Just like many black people run to Islam because of the horrendous atrocities of Christianity. I'm sorry, because of the atrocities of Christianity, not knowing they're the same thing. You run from a part where Jesus is divine to where Jesus is prophet. Other than that, you in the same soup. You in the same shit. Abrahamic religion, but I digress. All I'm saying is African people, by as a necessity for survival, cannot rest on liberalism. There has been too much exploitation, colonization, enslavement, oppression, and ecocide destruction. Liberalism would be fine under a just governance, just and equal distribution of resources. But you can't say, well, because the liberals will grant some rights and protections, but they will give more rights and protections to corporate persons than they do to human persons, real persons, then that gives me a right to abandon liberalism. And so just go and look up what liberalism is. Go and look up how it's been corrupted. Some things that are corrupted can be recaptured, reworked. Some things that have been corrupted, they must be discarded. Now, Africans have to go further. We cannot simply evolve to freedom. We need to revolve. We need a revolution. Our natural evolutionary path has been disrupted by invasion, colonization, enslavement, displacement. So when we were naturally evolving to higher levels of complexity in our civilization, that process was disrupted. So a natural progress now needs to be replaced by an unnatural, deliberate, directed process of revolution. And all that to say, that does not give you a right to go from liberal to conservative, from center to right. Now, Kamala is a right-leaning centrist. She is status quo. When she ran with Biden, she literally said nothing will fundamentally change. Whereas Trump says, I want to make America great again. So he wants to regress. He is a fascist, and he wants to return America to a lost prosperity that it never existed. That is a threat. Kamala is a threat. Both of those threats require a different analysis, a different remedies to address. If you simply say there's no difference between the two, then you render yourself vulnerable to both groups. If you say there are distinct differences between the two, they have different priorities, tactics, trajectories, interest, factions, and they require a different oppositional development, a different approach. Both of those two hostile groups target and exploit different vulnerabilities within our community. They are not equal. There can be arguments that one is objectively worse, that one is more aggressive, one seeks to blow something up while the other seeks to erode. If you got an issue of erosion, that's a different remedy to erosion than it is to demolishing. I don't know why this is so hard, but let me just say, stop Number one, attacking the Democratic Party, the Democratic National Convention, and the Democratic candidate from right-wing talking points and hysterics. Stop spreading right-wing reactionary talking points. Stop spreading their lies. Stop spreading their racist, sexist hysterics. There is way too many justified. I'm being vague. Okay. I'm not sure what specifics you need. I'm not sure what specific. Let me just lay it out. If you see an article criticizing Kamala because she slept her way to the top, that is sexist and racist and unjustified, and you shouldn't advance it, even if you hate Kamala's guts. If you see a post, a meme, a position criticizing her for sleeping her way to the top, if you see a criticism or condemnation because she eats babies or adrenochrome or Pizzagate, all that bullshit, you need to reject it. If you see a post opposing Kamala because grooming and the LGBTQ mob and transgender ideology, then you can reject that and call that out. If you see a post talking about Kamala supports open borders, that's racist and untrue. If you see someone calling Kamala a DEI hire or attacking her intelligence, or attacking her blackness, saying she's not black or she switched her race, it's pretty fucking obvious. The baseless, racist, sexist critiques and condemnation. Now, if you see something criticizing Kamala because of her support for the U.S. imperialist war machine from Ukraine, Syria, proxy wars in Somalia, CIA black sites, Guantanamo, her ongoing support of the economic warfare against Venezuela and trying to upend the Bolivarian uprising. If you see a post coming from that point of view, that is a justified, political, scientific, factual, evidence-based critique of Kamala. And you can say, okay, if you see someone attacking the hypocritical and insidious immigration policy, U.S. violation of international law and treaties as it relates to refugees, that is a U.S. policy in Haiti, AFRICOM, the Zionist genocide, her well-recorded history in the mass incarceration, malicious prosecution, advocacy for human abuses of human rights within the California prison system. There are some criticisms where you can go in on Kamala. She's a capitalist. She's an imperialist. You know, she's an elitist. There's a lot. But if people out here saying she's a slut, a whore, that's sexism. Because Trump is a convicted rapist. I ain't never heard nobody call him a slut or a whore when he literally paid a porn star to spank him. He's literally being recorded talking about assaulting women. But they want to talk about, he's literally married to a trophy wife. He's literally, I mean, Trump is basically a passport, bro. And his youngest son is an anchor baby. So all that to say, is that specific enough? Is that specific enough? You cannot allow in your opposition, in your conflict, allow yourself to give support to or give weight to racist, sexist, misogynist, right-wing, ultra-conservative, white nationalist points of views. You have to make sure your criticisms, your critique, your condemnation are African-centered, revolutionary, radical, evidence-based, fact-based, and you got so much to work with. With Kamala as an individual or the Democrats as a party, there's so much to work with, but you should never go for, and you should have enough respect to the community. Anybody who you think you can influence or listen to, have enough respect that you can tell the truth without hyperbole, without myths. And I'm not saying don't punch below the belt. I'm not saying don't kick them in the shin and throw dust in their eyes. I say fight dirty. But make sure you're fighting from the right side, which is the left side. That's all I'm saying. And I don't know why this is so hard to grasp. And I don't know why I see so many people sharing links from right-wing reactionary websites, articulating right-wing reactionary, baseless condemnation and accusation. Where they do that at? And I don't know how many more times we're going to have to go over this through this election cycle. Don't be a freaking weirdo. And I, for the life of me, I honestly don't understand or know why this has to be re-articulated. And I'm going to go out on a further limb. You don't have to defend Kamala to defend the principles, ideas, and values that are being violated in the attack of Kamala. So if you see someone engaged in a racist, misogynistic attack against Kamala, you should speak out and condemn it and call it out. And if someone is so intellectually lazy or just stupid and arrogant in their stupidity, where they're like, oh, you support the Democrats, you support Kamala, then so be it. You have done your duty. You've done your lowest level duty as an intelligent thinking person. And I don't know why I have to keep going over this. I'm not sure. It's just like Hillary. Even with Hillary, I hated Hillary's guts. I talked about Hillary so bad in the 2016 election. I went in her so hard. People were literally calling me a Russian bot. They were like, you're a Russian bot. I was literally asking people, where do I send my transcripts and send my invoices to Putin? What's Putin's mailing address? Because I need my money, Russia, because everybody's saying I work for you. But I never allow my attacks, even against someone as despicable as Hillary Rodham Clinton, who started her career as a ultra right-wing conservative Republican and cosplayed as a liberal Democrat because it was more cachet for her over there. I never allowed my condemnations and attacks to descend to the level of sexism and misogyny. And even when Kamala was running in the primary, I said some things. And some sister stepped to me and was like, bro, you can't use that language. You can't come from that point of view. And I'm like, sis, you know I'm not sexist. She's like, yeah, but that language, that position, that wording, that tone is sexist. So I'm like, farewell. I'll find another word. I'll get out some synonyms. So that's all. Even if it's I'd be saying the same thing. And I'm on tape. I've been on speaking publicly, writing publicly, posting, blogging, printing. I've been out here, and go on through my archives. And it's so easy. That's what's most frustrating about it. It's so easy to criticize Kamala from a progressive, from a leftist, even from a feminist or womanist perspective. She has been no ally to women as a group or black women in particular. It's easy to call out their pandering and their empty rhetoric for pro-immigrant to pro-LGBT. It's so easy to call that out. And so I hope that whoever the cat who said I'm being vague, shit is hella obvious to me. Maybe it's just hard, man. You know, like this work is so fucking remedial. How not to be anti-black. It's so remedial. Maybe I don't know how to get down to that level. I don't know. Anyway, let's move on. Let's get to the topic. Today's show is equality, wealth gaps, and other black fallacies. Now, I had a few other names for that I was going to title this, because I wish I could just come on here and start talking, but I got to make thumbnails and title my videos and such, you know. So I come up with these names and I think to myself, if I wasn't me, would I really understand what I was getting at? Not that I'm smart or anything. It's just, you know, sometimes I know what I'm saying, but I don't know what if other folks and folks, you know, there's a whole population of people out there. There's a whole population of people out there that love to misinterpret or take one element of what I'm saying and blow that out and just misunderstand it. So I was going to call this, first I was going to say, do as I say, not as I do. Because we've all heard that. And I wanted to talk about how black people were the true believers. And so I'm like, well, I can't say true believers. And whenever I say true believers, I don't like using, because there's two quotes. Because John Henry Clark said that black people are the true believers. And then he said, we out-pope the Pope and we out-Muhammad Muhammad. So generally, Stan Lee, when I used to read comic books and watch the cartoons from the 80s and 90s, and Stan Lee would come on and like, hello, true believers. And that's what he used to call comic book fans. Now, I've been reading comic books since you could buy them at the little wire rack at the 7-Eleven, and comic books were like 35 cents. You know, until the 90s, people started, you know, let me not talk about how capitalism ruined comics. What was I saying? Oh, so true believers. John Henry Clark said black people are the true believers, and it was an insult. He wasn't insulting us because it was an accurate assessment. But it's something that pained him. And he said, we out-pope the Pope and we out-Muhammad Muhammad. And not only has that been my observation through reading history going way back to African antiquity, that's been my observation in my personal life. I've been condemning capitalism and attacking capitalism since before I knew what socialism was. But I grew up poor. And one thing you know about poor people is they love capitalism more than rich people. Poor people believe in capitalism more than rich people. And I was reading Kwame Ture. I was reading him, but I wasn't comprehending him. I was 14, 15 years old. And my favorite Uncle Chris came and told me, and I was telling him, I'm a socialist. And he said, what the hell is a socialist? And I stopped and I'm like, hold on. And I ran in my room and I went and got some of my books. It wasn't no fucking thing. I was like, the next time somebody asks me what's a socialist, a communist, I want to have a better answer, because I didn't fully understand it. Only thing, when I first said I'm a socialist, I just knew it was anti-capitalist. And I knew I didn't want to be capitalist because I was poor as shit. And every time somebody in my community tried to make a way out of poverty, the system would slam down on them. And Ronald Reagan was president. And I know Ronald Reagan would talk about capitalism in the markets and the stock market. And I hated Ronald Reagan. And Ronald Reagan was threatening my mama and my grandma's food stamps and threatening our Medicaid. So I'm like, whatever this is, whatever they are, I ain't. But anyway, I digress. He said we're the true believers. I've been criticizing capitalism and denouncing capitalism before I even knew there were alternatives to capitalism. And I've never, only one time in my life, that I've had pushback and been challenged by a capitalist. In all my years of being anti-capitalist, I've only had one time. What's it? I'm sorry. The show in the middle. Okay, sorry. Somebody asking me to come through. But anyway, one time there was this French banker who was an institutional investor, very wealthy. And I was condemning capitalism, and a man who could be defined as an owner and controller of the means of production came and challenged me and wanted to debate and argue with me. He didn't want to do it publicly because most of the wealthy, true, real money people are not in public. And I was out in the Hamptons and we had a discussion, and it hit me. I've been having people holler at me, get all in my face, accuse me of wanting black people to be poor, accuse me of not wanting to see black people to have anything, accuse me of loving poverty. And I'm like, wow. As I was going back and forth with this guy, and he's explaining to me the virtues of the free market and how it's just a necessity, it's logic, it's human nature, aligns with human nature, and I'm giving my counter argument. I'm like, well, fuck. I'm probably in my early 40s. I've been banging on capitalism for most of my life. And this is the first time I've ever had a actual capitalist speak in defense of capital and capitalism to me. All the other fucking times I've ever had a debate, arguments, and even had people denounce me, condemn me, dismiss me, none of them were capitalists. All these black people. And this capitalist was conceding more points about everything from imperialism to the destruction of ecosystems, ceding more points and say, yeah, you're right. That is an essential cornerstone of this system. But, and he was like, and he's like, he was one of those techno optimists. Technology will eventually give us remedy. And as we colonize the stars and extract mineral resources, then more people can join. But yeah, of course, capitalism is by nature creates scarcity. He was ceding more points and accepting more of my points. But his bottom line was like, yeah, that's all bad, but I'm benefiting from the badness. And the goodness would harm me. I have no incentive. But I got people who would benefit from redistributive economics calling me a hater, saying I'm hating. And when they get up there, I literally had a poor black man who grew up in the same housing projects as me. He went off to school, got an accounting and finance degree. Dude came back from college talking about Africans are not properly utilizing or extracting, processing, or refining their own resources. And it's irresponsible because Africans are too backwards, too dysfunctional to capitalize on their own resources. It would be irresponsible for nations that do have the capacity to properly extract, refine, process, and distribute Africa's resources. So you sitting over there being lazy. So it's their obligation. It's not only their right, it's their obligation to go into Africa and extract the wealth. Because you can't, it's irresponsible, irrational. And this dude literally saw his family die, family members pass for lack of resource. They didn't have the access. So anyway, meeting all these, so I was going to call this show The True Believers. And I was going to talk about how we believe in what white folks told us. We believe white folks told us shit that they don't believe themselves. They impose things on us that they don't live it from themselves. I have this one relative, a beloved relative, a very highly, highly respected elder, my most highly respected elder in my family. And she used to have this saying. Whenever I would try to talk to her, I'm like, you're not supposed to do this, or you can't do that, or that ain't how something works. She had two things that I say all the time. One I say all the time. The other one I can't say because Kwabena and the Clear the Airways project, they be watching my show, and I don't want them to catch me using the N word. They have forbade it. But this is a quote, so I'm only using the N words for the sake of accuracy. But she had this quote that she said all her life, and this is a woman born into Jim Crow, raised up during the Great Depression, and went from a barefoot, impoverished Midwesterner to the heights of academia. And her saying was, "No, it's for niggas." She said, "No, it's for niggas." So all the limitations that white people put on themselves, they claim about the law, about regulations, about the limitations and the standards and practices. She's like, they violate this shit. They violate their grant. They have the Constitution under bulletproof glass, and they were like, the Constitution is a sacred document. They have all these tomes. They have the bar exam and all these legal representatives, and they send these diplomats all over the world into the UN, into the World Court, and they write these edicts and laws and all this grand stuff that we're supposed to hold sacred. We're supposed to be in awe, and it ain't shit to them. Black people loading their little black children into cars and driving to Washington, D.C. to look at the founding fathers. Look at the great monument to Washington and the Lincoln Memorial and the cherry blossoms and the Capitol building and the White House. And look at all this greatness. And the very people who started this shit ran up in that shit and smeared feces on the wall while we telling our kids about the great history. So she would always say, whenever I would tell her, you ain't supposed to do that or you can't do that, she's like, no, it's for niggas. Because these white boys do whatever the hell they want to do while they are imposing laws on you. And another thing she would say that I said all the time was that black people are the wildebeests of the world. And I explained that so many times. So I was going to call this Do As I Say, Not As I Do. But I think that was kind of abstract because that's literally our relationship with our oppressors. Literally everything they told us that we should do, we should be. And everything they told us was a necessity to be a good citizen. Everything they told us that was a necessity for having wealth and stability, a necessity for elevating within the society. Literally every fucking thing they told us was necessary for wealth. They did the opposite. Everything, not just black people in the United States, but when they go to Africa, when they go to the Caribbean, Haiti, Central America, and everything they tell those nations under these free trade, under NAFTA and CAFCA, everything they go and tell these other nations about economic development, the United States and Western Europe, the richest nations in the world, did the opposite. Everything they tell us about peace and lawfulness, they do the opposite. Everything they told Africa about peace, international sovereignty, human rights, they do the opposite. So I wanted to talk about that because it's 2024 and we still ain't learned it. We still the true believers. So I wanted to call it True Believers. I wanted to call it Do As I Say, Not As I Do, but I thought that was, so I said equality, the wealth gap, and other popular fallacies. So lies that we tell ourselves, lies that white folks tell us, conditions and ideas that Europeans impose on us that they violate themselves. I remember Dr. Ben said that not only is the white man not a Christian, the white man couldn't be a Christian. Dr. Clark said if the white man applied the Christian values that he imposed on us, if he applied that for one day, his empire would collapse. If Europeans were democratic, if they were truly free market capitalist, or if they were truly good Christians, their system would collapse overnight. So all these things that we think we got from them in terms of capitalism, the judicial system, all this shit we got from them. that we're using to get ahead is shit they didn't use to get ahead. So let's talk about equality first. Let's talk about equality. What does being equal with white people? We literally see equality as being able to enjoy the rights, the civil and human rights laid out in both the federal constitution, state laws, legislated by the local state legislators, city councils. We see equality as being treated exactly the way white people are treated. Now, you notice we don't define equality. Our ancestors who started this equality bullshit, we never look at equality as us behaving like white people. We always defining it in terms of us being treated like white people. So when the cop pulls us over and comes and taps on your window with his flashlight, he will be no more likely to shoot, to maim, to violate, to plant drugs on you than he would be a white man. When you go to apply for the job, the employer will scrutinize your record, scrutinize your employment history, scrutinize your qualifications and your educations, and in no way allow your race, your ethnicity to be a factor in whether he hires you or the next person. When you go to apply for the bank loan, all that bullshit, we think that's what equality is. Being equal to white people. Now, white people committed genocide on every populated continent on the face of the earth. And I used to say every populated landmass. But since we're not living in conditions of genocide, we're really living under conditions of omnicide. Because I used to say they've committed genocide on every populated landmass, which basically means everywhere but Antarctica. But the penguin population is fucking dying off in Antarctica. The coral reefs are dying. The largest living continuous organisms in the ocean is dying off. The highest peaks of the mountains to the lowest trenches in the ocean are full of pollutants and contaminants. So we want to be equal. Do we get to colonize? When does the equality start? We don't go back to Columbus. We don't want to commit genocide. We don't want to colonize. We don't want to enslave and brutalize. We don't want to impose our mores, our language, our belief systems on all other people against their wills. It's fine. You don't want to go back then. That was then. I just want to be equal. What? When does your equality start? In the 60s? Because even if we got equality today, that means we have to sustain the genocide of the native peoples. We have to sustain the genocide of the First Nations peoples in the United States. Leonard Peltier and his people, the Lakota, the Sioux. We have to sustain that because that's what they're doing right now. We're going to be equal and better? No. That's not equality. Land back is not equality. If we are to be equal to them, we have to sustain the nuclear arsenal, both the land nuclear arsenal, the underground nuclear arsenal, the mobile nuclear arsenal, and the oceanic nuclear arsenal. We have to build up, sustain, and expand the capacity to kill all complex life forms on the face of the earth. Extract neo-colonialism, neo-imperialism. Do you know how many active, direct, secret wars, black sites, torture sites? You say, well, when I become equal, I'm going to be better. Better is not equal. Bigger is not equal. Going past them is not equal. Equality makes no fucking sense. Being equal with your oppressor makes you equal with your oppressors. And then you say, well, I just want equal treatment. Even if you get equal treatment, where do they get the capacity to grant you anything? Where is the source of their power? And anything anyone is in a power to give you, they're in a power to take from you. So even if we secure equality tomorrow, it can be taken away. We've already had rights. They were like, you're free, slave, unless you commit a crime. Then you're re-enslaved. And now we maintain a legal slavery within the judicial system. Now we're going to expand laws. 3 strikes, you're out. We're going to expand the criminal code, and things in the past you might have gotten a fine for, you will now get incarcerated for. And then we'll have mandatory minimums and all that. So first they left them a little kernel of slavery. And then they allowed that little kernel of slavery to expire, where at times the United States has more Africans under penal control in prisons, probation, and parole. So they got more black people legally enslaved now than they did at the dawn of the Civil War. Loosening up to get a tighter grip. So what the fuck is equality? To this day, and I understand, all respect due to our ancestors. The conditions that they fought under, the resources that they had to fight with, and the consequences for standing up were greater then than they are now. Prove me the blood clot wrong. They were doing more with less. And not only we in the modern generation, so if you want to criticize our ancestors, not only we accomplishing less with more, we can't even hold on to the baton they passed to us. We're losing the gains that they got for us. At the same time, we sitting here criticizing and demeaning what they did, which is not what I'm doing. I understand, but equality is a fallacy. I have to put it into this context for some of our people to grasp it because of the level of miseducation. Imagine if the people in the Jewish people in Nazi Germany saw equality with the Nazis. We don't even have to imagine that, because there were some right-wing reactionary Jews when the Nazis were, when the leftists, when the fascists, the first people to bump heads with the fascists were the communists. And many Jewish bankers and capitalists were like, yeah, let those stupid ass right-wingers, just like now. You'll see now Ben Shapiro and the state of Israel, the Israel AIPAC, they're aligned with Nazis now. They're aligned with the Republican Party today. Well, they'll defend Israel. But the people who are defending Israel, non-Jewish people who defend Israel, literally, as a core of their believe that Israel must be destroyed before Christ can come back. So they want Israel to be assert and more aggressive to bring about the war of Armageddon. It's a dispensation. One of the 7 seals will be broken when the temple is resurrected on the mound. The mosque is torn down, the temple is resurrected, and then the heathens of the world will come and attack. So equality has always been a waste of our time and resources. We have some of our greatest ancestors who wasted their brilliance, who spilled their blood to secure equality with a people. And another thing, we always viewed equality with our oppressors as an elevation, when the reality is the reason we have not secured equality with them is because we haven't reduced ourselves enough. Abandon your humanity and you'll come closer to equality with your oppressors. I don't fucking understand this. And how many times have we had a black cop, a black mayor, a black CEO, a black judge, a black Supreme Court justice, a black president get up there and behave just like our oppressor, and then we literally jaw dropping. We like that old Pikachu meme. Everybody love equality until some equal shit happens. And it's no different than women's equality and women's lib, girl boss. And now the feminists, the mainstream feminists are finally figuring out this girl boss, hustle grind culture, third wave feminism was a trap. It was a trick. And you had people like Madeleine Albright, a mass murderer. Madeleine Albright and Hillary Clinton. And what's that woman's name that who did the Waco massacre? I can't remember her name. She's dead. Janet Reno. I don't know why I was thinking Jay Leno. I'm like, I know her name's like Janet Reno. She ran the Justice Department, and she was so quick to send out armed federal goons. That was feminism. And women were sitting there like, they saw women out here imposing. It's women in state houses revoking the right to abortion. And feminists sitting there like Pikachu, oh, because women wanted to be equal to men. And now black people want to be equal to white folks. And gay folks want to be equal to straight folks. So equality is not the same. In fact, equality is literally assimilation. Assimilation is erasure. Equality should have never been the goal. It should have been liberation. So that was one fallacy that I want to talk about. And that bleeds into the gap, the wealth gap thing. First of all, black people, we don't understand white folks' wealth. White people's wealth is a direct result of welfare, right? But the welfare that white folks got, they're already losing. You know, the black poverty rate is about 17%. Prior to the New Deal, the white poverty rate was officially like 20%, 22% prior to the New Deal. And after the New Deal, that's when the middle class was built. But the white middle class was erected as a bulwark against communism. That's it. Now that the communist threat, there were two things that allowed for the white middle class. All this wealth, we want to close the gap. First of all, now let me just tell this. The conditions are over. So you had series of economic upheavals and collapse. And most white people in this country were poor. There was no white middle class during what was called the Gilded Age, where you had a few white folks who were hyper wealthy, and then the white masses who all they had was segregated drinking fountain. And that's why when you white socialists come to us black folks, when you white communists come to us black folks and want to push class, explain to us, white people, the poor whites and the working class whites have been some of the most vicious and brutal and consistent racist classes. But I digress. So after World War II, during the New Deal was an initiative that was created because President Roosevelt and his cabinet feared a communist uprising in the United States because communism had happened in Eastern Europe. There were rumblings of pro-communist cells from throughout Western Europe, Italy, Spain, even the UK had very strong socialist, communist, and anarchist movements. The United States during World War I had just circumvented an anarcho-socialist uprising and a militant labor movement. And so Woodrow Wilson had upended that. So where there was these rumblings of a black left, there was a very strong and well-established and intelligent white left. And their ideas were appealing to the white masses because the white masses were broke as fuck. You know, that's why y'all want to talk this white privilege shit. White privilege is a myth. We're not confronted with white privilege. White people don't benefit from privilege. They benefit from pathology. We are dealing with white pathology. And if you want to get equal to them people, you don't get privileges. You get pathology. You don't become privileged when you get equality with white people. You become pathological. But I digress. So the United States was dealing with, from the late 1800s on into the World War I and the post-World War I depression, we're dealing with anarchist, socialist, anarcho-socialist, and communist agitation. And the same man that took down Garvey and the same man that took down the Black Panthers, J. Edgar Hoover, was the same man that took out the white left. And we always talk about how J. Edgar Hoover took out, because we believe in this myth of white. He expended more resources attacking, assassinating, false incarcerating, and deporting white anarchists and white socialists and white communists than he did expended resources on black folks. But we believe white people get some type of special treatment. White people's favorable treatment in this system is directly proportional to their depth of pathology. If a white person becomes non-privileged, i.e. non-pathological, and adopts a leftist, radical, revolutionary perspective, and you think that the feds and the system is not going to bring the hammer down on the white boy because he's white, well, he's not heavy, he's my brother. They don't have that rhetoric or that idea or that culture or that history. But I digress. Now, let me see. I think I got a troll in here. Let's see. Okay, anyway. So the United States after World War had the New Deal. The New Deal was not really turning shit around. And then they engaged in World War II. So going into World War II and coming out of World War II, the United States was in a very, very optimal position. First of all of the world outside of Western Europe was colonized. So the world was in two places around the world. The world was war ravaged and colonized. And if you understand about the economic conditions of colonization, they weren't allowed to development, or they call it maldevelopment or underdevelopment. And so the other competing economies of Western Europe, the former colonial nations of the West, had just been bombed each other. They engaged in a global scale murder orgy. And they had been through two global scale murder orgies from World War I and World War II. So the industrial West was exhausted. The communist East had just gone through a peasant revolt, killed off the czars, and they were in upheaval. And then after they went through they were building their communist regime. And here comes the Nazis, boom, boom, bam, bam, bam. And so the United States was the world's only superpower, economic superpower. And for a short window of time, it was the world's only military superpower and nuclear powered superpower. So the United States is like, we are the industrial headquarters of the world. Manufacturing, finance, defense, all is centered in the United States of America. And because we have all this communism and communistic uprising and the former colonial nations, Europe, UK, France, Spain, even the United States, these white folks was going to Africa saying, oh, we want to be friends now. And okay, decolonize, because they did their murder orgy, which caused them to expend resources that weakened their grip on their empire in the Caribbean, Central South America, all that. So the United States was in a very unique position to say, listen, everything flows through us. We have no economic competitors, no industrial or development or manufacturing competitors. We have no military competitors. Our enemies are defeated, and even our allies are weakened. And so that condition was the condition under which the white middle class was constructed. And the United States had all of this newfound wealth and power. And they said, let's give a little more to the white working class, to the white masses. And let's build up this white middle class in order to prevent ideological and organizational development of the left. So on one time we're going to go and do, because the COINTELPRO, we're going to obliterate the left. We're going to destroy, decapitate, delegitimize the left. We're going to bring the working classes, the labor unions, into the economy. So we're going to turn labor unions from radical organizations fighting for the means of production and turn them into status quo organization, racist status quo organizations fighting for income increases and job security. So we de-radicalize the unions that refuse, like the Wobblies, the IWW, the unions that refuse this deal to give up their revolutionary goals and to embrace capitalist goals and capitalist values. They were made illegal. Their members were hung, were shipped out. And so the white middle class was artificially constructed from welfare policies. And the resources that came to create the white middle class came from global instability that the United States, for a brief window of time, was the manufacturing, economic, military, and even cultural center of the world. But then as Western Europe reasserted itself, Germany not only reindustrialized, but eventually in the early 90s reunified, the UK and France and invigorated their neo-colonial policies in the protectorate. And then they created Israel, and they began to go and surround the oil resources and extract the oil resources. And then China, of course, had its revolution, and it arose as a military and economic power. The Soviet Union got a nuke, and then you had the Cold War. And so the United States power, even though it was great, was also shrinking. And so they were thinking, wow, now that we are not, we outsourced the manufacturing, because the capitalists who never supported the New Deal, they said, we're going to manipulate policy and we're going to allow ourselves to go to China and set up manufacturing in China so we can exploit the labor of China. And then when China started to industrialize and Chinese workers were like, yo, we want benefits. Oh, let's go to Singapore. Let's go to Vietnam. Let's go to Haiti. Let's create and now let's bring it all the way back to North America, and we're going to set up these maquiladoras in Mexico. So the capitalists have been setting, and that was once against the law. And they were like, we're going to get rid of tariffs and TAFs and all this shit. And all that to say, number one, the white elites have been engaged in one-sided economic warfare against the white masses from day one. And the white masses are too stupid to recognize it. So all that to say, the white middle class that you're trying to close the economic gap, because the economic gap will close, but it ain't you advancing to white folks. It's white folks falling back on you. And as white folks fall back on us economically, they're going to blame and attack us. They're going to massacre us and blame us. But don't worry, they won't just blame us. They'll blame the migrants. So anyway, you had this short fucking window of less than half a century where white people's entire, from the founding of their Greek civilization, the Roman civilization, the European British Empire, even the great European monarchies, their entire culture, their entire civilization was the top micro percent, the top 1% exploiting the hell out of the masses and almost universal poverty. And you had the monarch, the clergy, the lords, the dukes, the gentry class, and the poor classes. And they had this little window. And then the UK, when it started to develop, they were like, well, our people want to be communists. So we're going to give you free healthcare, free education. We're going to give you all these benefits because we don't want to go communist. We don't want our elites taken into a filthy basement and gunned down like the czars. So when there was two superpowers that had ideological distinctions, the elites of the West wanted to put a positive face on capitalism and say capitalism can give wealth to everybody. Capitalism can spread wealth to all of us. And that was a lie. Welfare. They gave welfare to the white masses. They told the white masses, you're not getting welfare. You're getting money. You're able to buy a house. You're able to go to university. You're able to buy a car. You're able to have one income and a stay-at-home wife. You're able to do all this because of your hard work, your morality, and your sacrifice and your brilliance. That's where all this came from. And the white man was like, yeah. And then black folks was like, give me that. Yo, ain't I a man? Am I not a citizen? I want that. And the white man was like, oh, you trying to take this from me? When the black folks was like, no, we're trying to take it from the government. We're trying to get from the government the same thing. No, I didn't get this from the government. I built this. And so white folks went to the ballot box and started voting against their own class interest because they believed not only were they rich or on the verge of being rich, they believed that their wealth and status came from their own hard work and sacrifice and not from government handouts. And they were like, the colors are asking for government handouts. At the very same time, they weren't acknowledging that their inherited wealth was a byproduct of government handouts. And so the white masses, their share of the wealth, even though the white collective has they have all the wealth, their share of the wealth. White people have all the wealth. But if you look at the white race, their wealth is concentrating at the top and it's trickling up. So poverty and despair and displacement is expanding amongst all white folks. That's where the Tea Party came from. That's where the MAGA movement came from. That's where the opioid epidemic came from. White folks always been doing drugs. There was never a time where the white majority in this country was not smoked out of its mind or coked out of its mind. The 80s, the 70s, they were always, dude, and I say it all the time. Both of my parents were drug addicts. And my parents, if they gave every dime they ever made to the drug game, it's not enough money to fill $1 trillion global industry. You got to have, if white folks weren't all drug addicts, it wouldn't be no point in having cartels, international cartels. You really think the small black boofers and crackheads in the hood are fueling this $1 trillion global industry of drugs? The white majority always had drugs. But now they got drugs plus poverty. So now their boofers are looking like our boofers. Their crackheads are looking like our crackheads. When before, the vast majority of white drug addicts were fully employed. And so white people are out here talking about the transgender, the immigrants, the handout, the takers. So not only are the white elites exploiting and taking their wealth back because they saw that the wealth that was redistributed amongst the white folks for the New Deal, not only did they see that, they always wanted it back. The Koch brothers, they were funding think tanks. They were funding think tanks whose main job was like, how do we blow up the New Deal? How do we get rid of Social Security? How do we take back? We had to give about 6%, less than 10% of our overall wealth we had to redistribute amongst the white masses. And we want it the fuck back. We want to go back to the Gilded Age. We want to go back to the monarchy. So they're slowly snatching back the welfare for the white masses. And at the same time, they're using the corporate media to indoctrinate them into blaming everybody except the source. And at the same time, black people, stupid black people, not you smart black folks, but stupid, are looking and saying, they're coming after black jobs. The migrants are coming to take black jobs. And the white majority is like, well, that black job was a white job. So everybody, here's the hierarchy, the racial hierarchy. And everybody on the hierarchy, instead of looking at the top, are looking down at the next person down from them. And so when we're talking wealth gap, and we want to close the wealth gap, there's a few more points I want to make on the wealth gap. The main point is the wealth gap will close, but it's not black people getting richer. The wealth gap will close because white people are getting poorer. And even though white people are becoming poorer, they're coming off of more than half a century of indoctrination about where their wealth came from and who took their wealth from them. And it's a lie. They are misinformed about where their riches came from, and they're misinformed about who's taking it from them. And they also have more than half a century of aggression, racism, and a half century of guns and ammo built up arsenal. I'm telling you, I grew up in Missouri, and Missouri was laid out. You had the poor housing project here, where I grew up. You had the city landfill here, and then on the other side of that city landfill were the poor whites in the trailers. And sometimes we'd walk across that landfill and interact with the white kids. We go over there and steal their bikes, and they come over our house and break our window. We was all interacting. And let me tell you something. There were white folks that didn't have indoor plumbing. Their electricity came from a diesel generator. And some of them even had dirt floors in their house. But let me tell you that one thing that was high class and pristine were their guns. Them shits was polished. They have dirt floors, but on the wall, they'll have the cleanest, most well-oiled shotgun you ever seen. So black people are like, we need to close the wealth gap. And let me tell you something. You're literally fighting to get closer to your killers. When you want to get closer to them, they're going to fucking kill you. They want to kill you. They want to harm you. They want to dehumanize you. They want to abuse you. Why the fuck do you want to close a gap? You got a historical abuser and a historical abusee, and the historical abusee say, let's close this gap. And do you really think, no, when I said close the wealth gap, that means just more money in our bank accounts? That's not how this system works. The money got to come from somewhere. The money got to come from somewhere. And as you get money in your bank account, you ain't going to keep living in the hood. You ain't going to keep living in the slum. You ain't going to keep living on the south side of Chicago off King Drive. Got to come home, people smoking weed in your hallways. You're going to want to go buy a house in the neighborhood. And you're going to want your kid to go to the good schools. So closing the economic gap means closing the physical gap. Stop playing, because the first time they get money, the first thing they do is run up under white folks and start consuming white things. You go from watching Tyler Perry movies to watching Bridget Jones's Diary movies. Stop fronting. You rich black folks, I see y'all. Black folks with resources and means. Just had a couple, literally. I ain't even going to say names. We had a couple. We weren't friends, but we were neighbors and acquaintances. We got along well. They had the best looking yard on the block. I hated that yard. Looked so nice, make everybody else's yard look unkempt. But she used to go to work, and she used to wear the blue shirt to work. And then I started seeing her coming and going. She see me leaving in the morning. I wave. I see her leaving in the morning. Her wife and her both had good jobs. And one day I saw her wearing a white shirt. And within 3 months of her going from the blue shirt at work to the white shirt at work, they sold that house and they're out of here. I don't know where they went, but I know they didn't go deeper into the hood. Because I'm on the south side, but I'm not on the far south side. I know she didn't go south. I know she didn't go west. And if she went south, she went way south to the south suburbs or north. So don't play with me. So all I'm saying is literally we are. And here's the thing about the wealth gap. As the wealth gap closes, so will conflicts and hostility and violence and targeting of our people. Now, as BroDiallo saying, don't try to close the wealth gap. Stay poor, black folks. No, what I'm saying is there's only one way to create a gap. Like Sha'Carri Richardson. She can only outrun you if you're racing her. That woman is fast. I can't catch her. I can't catch up to her. So if I'm standing there running with Sha'Carri Richardson, I got to close the race gap between me and Sha'Carri. But there's no gap between me and her because I'm not running that fucking race. I'm not on that field, and I'm not running that race. So I ain't got to catch her. They know nobody ever say, oh, Sha'Carri's out ahead of BroDiallo. No, she ain't, because I ain't even going in. So one way to destroy a gap, instead of closing the gap, we can obliterate the gap by going in a different direction. The only way to create a gap is if not only if you're following somebody, you're going in the same direction as someone, you have to keep a certain pace with them. And what are Europeans' ultimate trajectory? What is the ultimate trajectory if all things stay the same? Let's say Kamala and Biden, when they were running for president, they said nothing will fundamentally change. When Obama was running for office, he said we're going to have a return to normalcy because the George Bush administration was insane, 9/11, the war in Iraq, woo, woo, woo. So he said, I'm going to have a return to normalcy. And then they said, well, when I run for president, that's the Democrats. We'll just keep you miserable. We won't alleviate your suffering and we won't intensify your suffering. We just give you the normal amount of miserable, which is unacceptable. I ain't saying nobody should vote for that. But beyond that, so you're trying to close this wealth gap, and all you got to do is stop following these motherfuckers. Just like nobody ever talks about how Shikari's faster than me because I don't run the race. I'm not going there the way they going. And I ask again, a reasonable, logical, sensible black person, what is the trajectory? Where are white folks going? Because they can't be standing still. Because if white folks were stagnant, then we would have closed the gap a century ago. So they're moving as we're moving. And you look at those health. If you look at health, but that's a whole nother discussion. If you look at the economic statistics, those lines are constantly moving. This is an unstable, irrational system. And the European economics is more of a cult than it is a science. Economists are priests. They are not scholars. Yeah, I said it. You don't believe me? Go read Friedman. Go read the Lexus and the Olive Tree. He'll even say the most pro-capitalist economist in the world will say, yeah, this is not a rational or a sensible system. And it favors dysfunction. It favors madness. It favors instability. It favors irrational exuberance, to quote Alan Greenspan. So with the gap fallacy, we can go another way. If we start going that way, white folks, they follow us everywhere we go. What did Malcolm X say? White man is contradictory. He said, he said, when you try to get close to him, he said, you're moving too fast. You want to integrate. That's too much. I don't want to integrate. When you say, oh, forget you, I'm going my own way, I'm going back to Africa, he calls you a hater. So when you try to get close to him, he said, you're moving too fast. When you move away from him, he said, you're being hateful. So we could come together and define reality and have it act in a defined manner. We can say their reality, their direction, their trajectory. And then we can determine what resources are necessary for the world we want to create. Because we know what's required. Beyonce and Jay-Z have demonstrated, Oprah Winfrey, Barack and Michelle have demonstrated to us what are the requirements to elevate in the world they created. What does it take ideologically, socially, culturally, materially, even economically for us to create? So I'm not saying we don't need no money, we shouldn't get the monies. But what we do with the money, what resources do we need for the world we want to build? The just, Pan-African, revolutionary, liberatory communities, systems, institutions, operations. What are the resources? What are the economics related for that? Because we know what the Floyd Mayweather, Mayweather economics, but fuck that shit. All of them motherfuckers is miserable. I promise you. I had a homeboy who was a serial entrepreneur. Every week he had a new business plan. Some were wildly successful, some, but he never, and he would always say, I just got to get in the room with so-and-so. And he's done business deal with some pretty well-known folks. A lot of these people that are in business and investment and philanthropists. But anyway, he would talk about being in the rooms, politicking and maneuvering and rubbing shoulders with these people. They're all fucking miserable. And I understand, as a working class poor person, you should have as much disdain and contempt for the rich folks as they have for us. Why not? Just till you get rich. After you make your 10th million, because even if you got $1,000,000, you ain't even part of the elite. You ain't even a member of the 1%. You're not even a member of the upper 10% of wealth with $1,000,000. Once you get your first 50 million, then you can switch. I won't even be mad. I won't even call you a trader. It's logical. If I get $10 million, I'm gonna sell out the people too. But if you got less than $1,000,000 in personal wealth and resources, now I don't mean your social media wealth. I mean your real world material wealth, your liquid wealth. If you're a low value man like me, just try operating in a world where you have intrinsic, instinctive, immediate contempt and hostility for the wealthy people. It makes for a better life. Be a hater, be a Grinch. But I digress. Equality should be changed to uh, equality should be changed to liberation from, not equality with. The wealth gap should be the redirection. Stop fighting to close the gap and fight to create an African redirection. And call it an African Renaissance. There's all, but no longer are we pursuing or trying to get close to. The resources that we are due from this system is not for the purpose of us getting closer to or having what white folks got. Because what they got obviously ain't made them happy. I just said we saw them run up in the Capitol and smear feces on the wall. And those are the upper class white folks. And that's a myth that's saying, oh, only poor white people are joining the MAGA movement. It's affluent, articulate, educated white folks that are part of that MAGA movement. I know y'all so fixated on Kamala, y'all forgetting about Trump. I ain't heard nobody say nothing about Trump and the MAGA movement, which was the Tea Party movement, which ain't going nowhere even if Kamala gets elected. So we don't need the wealth gap because we will not follow them. We don't want what they got. We want what due us. And when we get what's due us, we don't intend to create the world, the hyper-consumerism, alienation, opioid-driven suburbs that they create. We don't want to create an elite class to lead us. We're going to more justly distribute the resources amongst ourselves, and we're going to put our resources towards creating more just and equitable internal social relationships and restoring the ecosystem, and provide services to one another based on need, not ability to pay. We don't want to close gaps between us and our oppressors. We want to go in a completely different direction. We're not going to run the race with them. I had a Rasta homeboy that used to say, you know, even if you win the rat race, you still a rat. We ain't going to hustle. We ain't going to grind. We're going to uplift, cooperate, share. We want economics based on cooperation and sharing, not on competition and concentration of wealth. So I only got through 2 of the myths. I said other myths. I'll try to maybe pick those up later. Yeah. I'm going to open this up shortly. A lot of people had a lot of things to say. So I'll share. And I'm open now for questions, comments, criticisms. You can type in your questions. And it's short. Thank you, Kevin Baptiste, for the super sticker. I sure enough appreciate you. Any other question, comments, criticism? That's a good costume. But how do you do that? You need a whole ear without any scars or damage to it. That was Trump as a crisis actor. He wasn't shot. But yeah, that's a good Halloween costume suggestion. Well, anything else? That's it. Oh, I guess we got no question. Maybe we can end early today. A little early. Y'all want the feds to come to y'all door. Zero PE. Speaking of not doing the race, how do we not participate in this system while living here? I never suggest that we don't participate in this system. If you listen to what I advocate, I think Black people should be fully engaged and fully involved in the system. So, but how do we participate? I think I said what resources we do secure, we do not engage in utilize our resources for the same thing they do. We, instead of concentrating the wealth amongst Black elites, we redistributed what resources we have and what resources we secure more equitably. And that's just for Black people living here. There's a whole different protocol and standards for Black people seeking liberation and to resist this. But I think if you were listening, I think I told you specifically the things we did that are diametrically opposed to white folks. And not once did I ever say we separate or even physically leave this place. So I think I answered that question. If you rewatch this video, you can go back uh, um, a few minutes before I posted this question. I think I said in detail, I listed the way we should behave differently than they do in this system. And I never said don't participate. Yes, vote, run for office, start a little enterprise, a little cooperative enterprise, send your kids to public school. I mean, I'm not sure. Do I need to repeat myself? My wife, don't blame your wife. Man, hold on. Just hold on. I'm coming. Hold on. I'm coming. This is a one-man show. So give me a little time. I got you. Y'all gave, I mean, shit. How much time? Y'all give Umar that y'all gave him $700,000 to build a school, and y'all gave him a decade. Give me another few. I got you, man. Don't do that. Don't be like that. My goodness. And what are people who have gotten their Patreon gifts? Help me out here. Tell them how wonderful it was. And the longer the wait, the greater the reward. We ain't never heard that. It's like church building fund type business. Anyway, how do we deal with a Black psychology that believes we're all just failed millionaires? Well, to be honest with you, I don't really see. I see that more amongst white folks. I don't think that's the issue. But in order to change Black people's, you have to first articulate the ideology of socialism and cooperative economics, and then model that before them. You know, I tell Black people all the time, you're better off working to uplift your class than uplift your individual status, because you have a higher success rate of collective elevation than you do of individual elevation within the system. So you just have to educate them and then model the appropriate behavior. That's the quick and dirty answer. Oh wait, what's this? Diallo, remember you was going to talk about that receipt of that Venezuelan woman in Chicago? I don't know what you're talking about. You have to be more specific. Oh, oh, ow. Oh, right. The Venezuelan receipt. Anyway, there was this receipt that was going all over the Black community that went viral. It was everywhere. So let me see if I can pull it up. So there was a receipt recipe. Hold on. Okay, give me one more second. Lord have his mercy. Oh, there it is. Okay. Oh, I wonder. Anyway, there was this black woman who posted online that there was a Venezuelan in front of her at the dollar store or some grocery store. And they said that that receipt had belonged to um, a Venezuelan migrant who was in front of her in the line. And that they were getting free groceries. But I think that's already proven to be a hoax. Venezuelan migrant EBT. Let's see. Let me see. See, we're discovering this in real time. Because they fact checked that. Anyway, they said that this Venezuelan woman was in front of her in line, and there was this receipt where she had bought like $1,000 worth of groceries, and her personal charge was zero because she was receiving EBT or welfare. An illegal immigrant. So cashier takes photo after illegal immigrant from Venezuela left her receipt at the grocery store, right? So let me share this. Right? And so you see the balance, the EBT food stamp balance was 13,000? Geez, 13,000. And the EBT cash balance was 4,000. And the food stamp total was $24. The EBT, I don't know why that is, but she spent $24 and she only, because the EBT food stamps paid for all the food, she paid nothing. And so a black woman said, see, they here getting benefits, and was outraged. And everybody was telling us they here getting benefits. They here getting benefits from black people, and black folks were outraged that Venezuelans are here receiving food stamps, health care, and in Chicago now they're allowing migrants, illegal immigrants, illegals to get driver's license. And so, first of all, the absurdity of this. You have to take a lot of shit at face value. First of all, how do you know you're behind the line of an illegal Venezuelan immigrant? How did they know? There was no picture of the person. It was just literally someone got a food stamp receipt, took a picture of it, and said, I was in the line behind a Venezuelan, illegal Venezuelan immigrant. And she left her receipt behind. How the fuck do we know? Where's the evidence of that? But let's say we're going to be dumb enough to accept that. There's an illegal Venezuelan immigrant who has an EBT card. And how the fuck is that a problem for the black community? Do you think the white man was sitting in the food stamp, sitting at the food stamp office and was like, well, I was going to send Sister Shariki these food stamps, but I'm going to go ahead and send it to Mariana? That's not how that shit works. How the fuck are you outraged? Number one, I think they're not even immigrants or illegal immigrants. They're refugees. Venezuela had a socialist revolution. They call it the Bolivarian Revolution. The United States was hostile because they were taking the resources of Venezuela. Basically, Venezuela said, we're going to use Venezuela's considerable oil resources to uplift the native people and the working class people of Venezuela, give them services, build up the infrastructure and institutions to serve the people, fuck the elites. And then we're going to take those revenues and help other struggling communities across the world, including in the United States. During Hurricane Katrina, Venezuelan government was donating oil, resources, cash. Even in Haiti, Venezuela gave billions of dollars to Haiti during the Bolivarian Revolution. So you had a leftist government with oil reserves that said, instead of using these oil reserves to enrich the international elites and enrich our own elites, we're going to redistribute. So the United States embarked on a campaign to upend the Bolivarian Revolution. They attempted to assassinate the leaders. They financed a failed coup d'état, and then they employed an illegal blockade. And then they started manipulating international oil markets in order to destroy. And then they started to destroy the Venezuelan economy. And then they started on a global scale propaganda campaign to talk about Venezuela is a horrible dictatorship that doesn't have freedom and liberty. And we have to defend the freedom and liberty of the Venezuelan people. So the disruption, the upending of the Venezuelan economy is a direct result of economic hitman. And that scumbag, Uncle Tom, Colin Powell, went before the UN and went before the world and said, from a military and geopolitical perspective, if you break it, you bought it. Meaning, if you engage in international espionage, invasion, disruption of another nation, you become responsible for that nation. It becomes a client state. So every fucking Venezuelan that crosses into the United States should legally get refugee status and whatever benefits that come to refugees, if you're a justice-minded person. But let me also tell you, African woman, African man, that is in this country suffering for centuries, generations before Venezuela, before you even knew Venezuela existed, before the first Venezuelan crossed that border, our poverty, our hardship, our struggle is not a product or a byproduct of Venezuelans receiving their benefits. If you want to be mad about resources that should come to our community going else places, be mad at the U.S. military. Look at those aircraft carriers and those stealth bombers. If you want to be mad at somebody receiving government funding, be mad at military contractors. Be mad at those motherfuckers who were building the border wall and charged the government. Be mad at Brett Favre. Now, there are several organizations and individuals and communities that you should target saying, hey, they took our money. They took our jobs. But let me tell you, if you are mad at the benefits received by refugees and other people who are victims of U.S. imperialism, then you are fodder. You are fodder. You are literally engaging in divide and conquer tactics. And you know how people, we always say, we can't be divided and conquer. You are literally the person. You will go down in the history books as a victim of the most basic, obvious divide and conquer tactic. How are you got access to the fucking internet? And you falling for the lowest level tactics of the elites? How are you falling for the lowest level, most basic tactic of divide and conquer? Which means you are a person who is either intellectually lazy, you are indoctrinated, you have jingoistic, patriotic, nationalistic views that don't even support your interest or your class. All of the welfare benefits, the most biggest drain on the U.S. economic infrastructure is the U.S. military. And the biggest benefit and welfare recipients in this country are the billionaire class and the multinational corporations that they own, controlling stock in. So yes, black folks, you are being robbed daily. You are being denied your share of the wealth you generated every day. Every moment you spend at work, every time you go into the store, you are being economically exploited. You are being treated like a human resources that is being tapped. You are like Boots Riley, you are a gold mine and they are mining you to complete depletion. And if you're lashing out, if your class consciousness, if your first target of outrage for your economic exploitation is a Venezuelan EBT receipt, God damn it, you are part of the fucking problem. So what you need to do Even Trump came out and said, Elon Musk is giving me $53 million. And when I get to office, I'm going to funnel billions of dollars to Tesla, SpaceX, Boring companies. So you're not expressing a point of view of justice. You're not seeking justice. You're seeking to join the unjust. You're seeking to join the predator class. So, but all that's to say is, from that Venezuelan welfare EBT receipt has never been validated. It's never been confirmed or proven. They tried to audit the Pentagon. The U.S. government went to audit the Pentagon under 2 presidential administrations, the Trump and the Obama, and the Pentagon bookkeepers was like, step the fuck off. That's essentially a coup d'etat. This is supposed to be a civilian-led government. And the Congress is supposed to have oversight over the financials. And just go to any computer and type in any search engine, Pentagon audit. They lost over $1 trillion in Iraq and Afghanistan. And you tripping off of food stamps of a Venezuelan mother. She just said she was a lone woman in Venezuela. Fuck are you talking about? It hurts me to see how corrupted black folks are. You are corrupted, contaminated. You are under what Amos Wilson called somnambulistic possession. A white spirit possesses your mind. You out here talking about these Venezuelans the way these poor white trash talked about our ancestors. Look at on welfare. You mad at Venezuelans on welfare. White folks are mad at black people on welfare. Now we got Venezuelan welfare queens. The bumbleclot. I don't even know what to say. I said I was going to talk about it, but then I didn't talk about it. Because, I mean, and what scares me is this shit just went viral. Black folks all over, they're getting benefits. I got a cousin who is comfortable, mad comfortable. Like, comfortable. Luxury cars in the garage, bills paid, never have to put something on the bills. Children's college tuition is covered. I got a comfortable cousin, right? And I was sitting across from them, and they started talking to me about the Venezuelans. They're here in shelters. They're here getting benefits. I'm like, why is that a problem? And they said to me, what about the homeless black people? And I looked at them and said, known you all my life. We the same age. Known you all my life. And this is the first time I ever heard you cry out or speak about the plight of the homeless black folks. You don't speak about the plight of homeless black people because you want black people to have shelter. You're literally weaponizing black poverty to attack Venezuelan poverty. But then I didn't go much further because she got nice things. She got a nice house, and I didn't want to get put out. So I left it at that. So if your righteousness can only come, if your outrage can only come at the black people being denied benefits is only a byproduct of you seeing Venezuelan getting benefits, you are part of the problem. You are literally indoctrinated, and you're literally a product and a tool of the white elites. And I'm gonna wrap it up with that. Now I was in a pretty good mood, bragging about my family. So like, share, subscribe. Nobody came through to holler at your boy tonight, but it's all gravy. I get it. I'm going to be in. I don't know if it's gonna happen, but we have a event. Me, Skip, Dr. Jared Ball, all them. We gonna be no love. But anyway, can you share this link? I'm gonna put this link in the thing. Holler at your people. If you got rich cousins that you haven't pissed off, if you got enough sense not to piss off your rich cousins. Oh, that's the wrong thing. That's the wrong thing. What in the world? Here it is. I'm sharing in the link, and I'll put it in the description the GoFundMe so you can come support. What in the world? They play around. Okay, let's do that. Let's do that. This thing, man. Oh, here it is. Okay, put the link in the thing. I'm trying to put the thing on the thing, and now that, oh my goodness, I'm trying to leave here, but it won't let me go. Okay, here it is. Boom. Please share this link. I just put it in the comment section. It's about our GoFundMe. Uh, it's struggle. I'm almost embarrassed to share it. We're trying to raise money to get to Jackson, Mississippi. Me, Geechee, and Jared are heading to Jackson to do a live event and to celebrate Skip's monumental effort. So if the Lord puts it on your heart, I'm passing the digital plate. Uh, if the Lord puts it on your heart to give and to support, you know, if you manage, if you haven't been robbed and impoverished by the Venezuelans and you got a little extra you can give, please support. I think I'm gonna call Skip. We're gonna do a little pop-up fundraiser. This album is magnificent, and I'm really honored to be a part of that project and all that. So if you do have the wherewithal and the Lord or the ancestors put it on your heart to help us get to Jackson, please do. I'll put the link in this video as well, and I'll be sharing the link everywhere, passing around the digital plate so you can help spread the word and get the word out. And I appreciate y'all. Thanks for helping me to get to 5,000 subscribers. Like I said, I'm big time now, so please don't approach me casually on the streets. You see me out sipping on oatmeal latte, please just wave from a distance. Don't approach. Because I got 5,000 YouTube subscribers. Big time, famous. Anyway, I will be seeing y'all Wednesday. Maybe we'll just do a straight up Q&A, a Jackson, Mississippi Q&A. Happy Black August. That's the event that's coming up. So I'll be in Jackson, Mississippi. If you in that area, come through, holla at your boy, come break bread with us. If you saw EYL in Baltimore, big fun. We need to reinvigorate African conscious, African intellectual culture and African intellectual social outlets and social events to counteract the corporate driven minstrel show that Black culture and Black entertainment and Black community has come. So it's all good, and there's always layers to this. Thank you for tuning in, and we're going to go to this topic, the other fallacies of fallacies in this system that we adhere to. I hope we stop talking equality and stop talking that wealth gap rhetoric and get back to liberation and imagining economic relationships, and that's it. So I'll see y'all next Monday with the BroDiallo broadcast, or maybe not. I think I'll still be in Mississippi and come on, but I'll keep y'all posted. And Patreons, don't give up on your boy. Listen, times is hard. As soon as I get back and sit down, first thing I'm gonna do is sit down to my desk and get those Patreon. All right? And I'll see y'all next Monday. I'll definitely see y'all next Monday.